For me, it was a lot of soft skills, and I think I was really focused on technical skills in college. But like coming out to DC and meeting people, I found that people just want someone that they'd be willing to like grab a beer with, like at happy hour, or so I think just being a pleasant person was actually instrumental. I don't know if I met that requirement, but I really tried to make an effort. And also, I think working in the advocacy space, it's so important to remember that you need to advocate for yourself as well.
Yeah.
Ask for help. I mean, that was something I tried to do, like even in your class. Although I was generally quiet, I mean, like asking for help is so important, like because the closed mouths don't get fed, and
Yeah.
that's something that was very important to me this summer.
All right. Welcome back to Money Misfits, where we have conversations about money with really interesting people. And today I've got somebody super interesting, Isabella Vaka. So she is a former community college student. She came to the College of San Mateo a few years ago, transferred off to Cal Poly, graduated from Cal Poly, I believe just this last spring.
Yep.
And then has spent the summer interning in Washington, D.C., and is also heading back to Capitol Hill for a fall internship. So anyway, welcome to the show, Isabella.
Thank you for having me.
So did I get the intro right? Is there anything that I missed? Any highlights that you think we should mention before we move forward?
That was brilliant. Short and sweet.
Okay. All right. Well, full disclosure, you were a student of mine. I can't remember the specific year, but I feel like it was probably 3 years ago, 4 years ago, after the pandemic.
Yes.
Okay. And so you took financial accounting and managerial accounting with me, and that's pretty much the last I saw of you. And over the years, we've been kind of keeping in touch on
Right.
LinkedIn. And yeah, I'm really, really impressed with your journey,
Thank you.
and I'm excited to get into it. But what I thought we would do is maybe just start with kind of your background, what conversations you had internally with your family around education and money. Like, was it expected that you were going to go to college, and did you have any money conversations growing up?
Right. I think money conversations we generally steered away from. I think my parents experienced financial stress and they didn't want that burden on me at a younger age. So the college conversation kind of happened just as I was approaching the age to apply. Um, and I think the pandemic was, of course, like instrumental to my decision to pursue community college. And in terms of academics, I've always been in an environment where I was prepared to succeed academically. I think that was something that my parents really tried hard to do, was to ensure that my sister and I were set up to be as academically like inclined as possible. I think I remember spending summers at the library. So we were always encouraged to use our intelligence to our advantage. And that was something that's always been integral to me.
Nice. And so how was did you feel like you were a good student in high school? Like, could you have gone off to a 4-year university straight out of high school? And was it just your choice to come to community college? Or were you a less than it doesn't sound like you were, so maybe I'll just stop and ask, why did you make the decision to go into community college, and how were you as a high school student?
Right. I'd say I was a decent student in high school. I played sports throughout high school, so that took up a lot of my time, but I was still like generally an A student. And by the time I was applying for college, it was right after the pandemic had reached its height. So we were looking at our options, and the schools I was accepted into, I just didn't feel attached to any of them. I hadn't been able to tour any of them because of the pandemic. So the most financially sound decision was just to attend community college, and I was fine with that because I'd be able to live at home, especially considering virtual classes and, wearing a mask, um, I felt comfortable with that decision, and I knew that it would be the best decision financially.
Nice. Nice. So how about your experience at CSM? Like, so your first semester, you came to CSM. How was that experience for you?
It was very isolating socially, which I was very well aware of. I also didn't really try to make an effort to befriend people in my classes. I think I was very set on this is a transition period. Like, I need good grades to just transfer out. So that was kind of my focus, just doing well academically and building connections with my professors and faculty.
Nice. And um, did you feel like CSM or the community college that you attended, did you feel like that they were trying to reach out to you? Were there learning communities? Were there organizations on campus that you felt like were trying to reach out to you to provide some support or to be of some assistance in your educational journey?
Definitely. I think CSM was superb in that sense. I mean, there was Mana, there was Promise. There were a number of programs that were reaching out to me to support me, not only academically, but also financially. And I took advantage of those. But still, I wasn't necessarily active socially. Like, I wasn't attending things in person. But I mean, CSM definitely made an effort.
Got it. Got it. And so you ended up in my class.
Yes.
Um, Like how at what point within your journey were you deciding to take my class? Was it your first year, your first semester, second year? Like how did you end up how did you end up in my class?
I believe it was my second semester at CSM. I think it was spring. I was about to take financial. You had stellar reviews, so I was like, this is a no-brainer decision. And I mean, it ended up being one of the best decisions I made at CSM. So, I mean, no doubt about that.
Nice. Well, I appreciate that. I tell students all the time. In fact, ah, I tell students all the time that they should not trust my rate my professor reviews because I give extra credit for people who leave really good reviews. So it's like I think I'm up to around 400 reviews right now. Like there's no other accounting instructor on the face of the planet with 400 reviews on Rate My Professor. So anyway, um, I like that you like so many of my other students read
Yes.
my Rate My Professor reviews and ended up in my class.
Mhm.
And so, like, what I'm really interested in is
Uh-huh.
over the years, you have made some indication about being a Pacific Islander in my classes and not really having anybody else that sort of shared your background or
Right.
looked like you. And I'm really curious to know what that experience was like for you.
Uh-huh. I think growing up, I can't really pinpoint the first time I realized that I was one of the very few Pacific Islanders in the classroom, but I did grow cognizant of the stereotypes associated with Pacific Islanders around like late middle school to high school. That was obviously when I was in classrooms with more and more Pacific Islanders. Prior to that, I had generally been the only one. So I think I really subconsciously made an effort to try and be a perfect student in the academic sense because I didn't really see that exemplified within my community, aside from like figures within my own family, like my mother and my uncle. And again, like in my household, like it was paramount, you know, understanding that intelligence is like the key to opening doors and like it opens opportunities. So, um, yes, I think that was something I was always conscious of, um, like towards middle school. And then like I just figured that that would be my strength moving forward.
Did you feel uncomfortable in any way in my class? Right, so let's back up. My class is accounting,
Right.
and it's very obviously, but well, traditionally, it's very white and Asian
Mhm.
dominated, and
Yes.
so I don't have well, I would say I probably have more than most accounting classes, but Pacific Islander students, very few Hispanic students, very few. Black students, very few. And so what's the experience like for you in the classroom, not looking like everybody else? Is it intimidating? Did it you were very quiet, and so did did you were you self-conscious about speaking up because you felt different, or is that just part of your personality?
That's a really great point. I think I'm um, outside of classroom, I'm extremely loud. So, so I think I definitely tried to like fly under the radar in your class. But that just translates to how I want to be perceived in, academic spaces. Um, I think you can see there was a bit of a stark difference between me and like Ezra, like another Pacific Islander in your class who was very outspoken.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, I did feel discomfort in that sense, but I've also always been in white and Asian spaces, so it wasn't new to me necessarily. But um, yeah, I do feel like a duty to kind of not necessarily minimize myself, but to kind of assimilate.
interesting. Yeah. Do you think that there was anything that I could have done differently because I was always shocked at how strong of a student you were, but yet how quiet you were in class. And then equally shocked moving forward that you have done such a good job of keeping in touch with me. And it's like, dude, this girl did not say two fucking words in my class. And yet she's so good about keeping in touch. And we would trade emails, and you had so much to say in your email communications that, like, I wonder, was there something that I could have done to made it more comfortable for you, or
Uh-huh.
have gotten you to, be more vocal in the class?
Right. I don't want you to feel like it was, a burden on you to take on. Um, I do find that I just felt more comfortable letting my work kind of speak for itself. Um, yeah, simply put.
Nice. Okay. So then, um, it sounds like you did really well at SEM and CSM. What was applying for the four-year university, getting ready to submit applications, like, how did that look? Like, were
Uh,
you applying to a lot of schools? Did you have a very specific small set of schools? Like, how did you approach the transfer process?
right. Um, I was generally looking at UCs and CSUs. I think attending a California community college, these schools are generally feasible to get into as long as you, keep your grades up and meet all the transfer requirements. USC was my top choice, and then second was Cal Poly. When it came to USC, it just again was not financially sound, and I think there was one course that I really didn't want to take in order to complete the agreement. So I was like, you know what, let's look at CSUs. I remember you were kind of pushing me to like look at Berkeley, but for some reason it was not I was not inclined to apply to Berkeley. Um, and I think I'm happy with that decision just because um like the size of Cal Poly, it was able for me to kind of rise up in terms of like student leadership and gain a lot of opportunities within Cal Poly because it's a much smaller school. But
Nice. So then, I feel like that's a good segue into transferring to so let's back up. Did you get accepted to any of the UCs, and did you turn down any UCs just out of curiosity?
I don't think I applied to any.
Nice. Okay.
Yes.
I just spoke to somebody who got accepted to Berkeley and
Mhm.
UCLA and opted to go to Cal Poly, and is like
Wow.
going into her second year at Cal Poly and super excited, doesn't
Yep.
regret the decision at all. And so anyway, what was your, like, leading before you got to Cal Poly, were you nervous at all about transferring to a four-year university? Like, were you concerned that you didn't have, the academic excellence to succeed there? Were you worried about making friends? Like, what were your big worries leading into transferring off to a four-year university?
Precisely. I think socially, that was an aspect that I was very fearful of because I'd been isolated again for 2 years, just sitting at home and commuting to CSM. As well as the rigor, like the academic rigor, that was something I took into account. Those were by far like the two scariest decisions for me. Also living on campus, because I decided to move on campus as like a third year transfer.
Yeah.
But that ended up being the best decision I could have made because I built a community so quickly. Um, so yeah, those two for sure.
How did you build a community? Because I remember for me, those were my two big worries
Right.
was I going to be, was I going to be okay in the classroom because everybody was going to be so much, I felt like everybody was going to be so much smarter than I was.
Yes.
And then I was like, man, I'm really worried about making friends because they've all, theoretically, everybody that I'm going to be interacting with has been there for 2 years already and they have a friend group. And
Mhm.
I was really worried about making friends.
Right.
And so I'm just curious. It sounds like it turned out to be a real easy transition for you.
Mhm.
So, like, what was it about the experience that made it so easy for you? Like, how did you, how did you assimilate and build a friend group so quickly?
Right. I think I'm very fortunate in that regard because obviously that's not, I'd say, a common experience for transfers. But I made an effort to like go on those Facebook pages, go on like Discord and things like that to meet people before I had arrived at Cal Poly. And my three roommates were exceptional. We met online and then finally met in person. And I, again, just very, very fortunate that we all got along. They were all different majors.
Yeah.
At Cal Poly in particular, half of the class is business transfers. So I was isolated. Everyone's a business transfer. So I was able to connect academically as well as socially. And everyone's from California at Cal Poly. So
Nice. And that's funny because uh, I spoke to two other kids just recently, and they were saying the same thing that they moved into a place and they met their roommates online. And it's like, man, that's like such a cool thing.
yeah.
I don't remember so I rented a studio my first semester
Mhm.
because I didn't really know anybody and I had
Oh,
no way to connect with somebody. But now it seems like it's much easier to do that,
yes.
obviously, because of the internet. And so, how about academically? Like, did you feel like you were well prepared when you started taking classes at Cal Poly? Was that a difficult or easy transition?
I do think I was well prepared. Again, like rigor was something that I was stressed about going in, but um, a new thing that I hadn't factored in was how much my social life would, kind of try and take time from my academics. So finding that balance was more difficult than transitioning like academically, if that
Oh
makes sense.
shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because were you more social at Cal Poly than you were at CSM, do you think?
Undoubtedly. I think I kind of clicked back into my nature back in high school. I was very outgoing.
Yeah.
And I mean, you have to be in order to kind of like be social and make friends.
Yeah.
So I think uh, that was obviously.
And do you feel like looking back at CSM, do you have any regrets about not being as social at CSM as you could have been, or is that something that you haven't given much thought to?
I think I definitely could have made an effort to be more social and, talk to people in my classes. I have like some LinkedIn connections from CSM and they're doing phenomenal things. And it'd be nice to connect with them again. Um, but yeah, I do wish I'd been a little more involved at CSM rather than just, sticking my nose in the books.
Okay, nice. I never had a problem being social. I was always a guy in getting in trouble in high school for talking too much,
Right.
and then in community college, I had tons of friends, and then like at Cal, everything worked out.
Yeah.
For me, the big saving grace I feel socially for me at Cal was like I ended up joining a club. I had no intention of joining clubs. And they sort of pushed it on us very early on in our junior year. The minute I was like on campus, it was sort of like, this is something that you should consider doing. And
Right.
they would have clubs come into the classroom and pitch what their intentions were and what their goals were. And so I begrudgingly joined a club, and it turned out to be like the best decision I ever made there, because it was just like an instant social network, and I was in tune with like internship opportunities. And
Right.
so I joined a business club. But yeah, it was like the best decision I ever had. And it turned out that like the transition to the 4-year university socially for me was actually very easy. And it sounds like it was
Yes.
kind of easy for you as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so now you're at Cal Poly, you're taking classes. It sounds like you were in the academic transition was okay for you. Socially, things were working out. Um, when did you start thinking about the transition out of Cal Poly and into the workforce? Was that something that started your junior year, or was it something that you started focusing on your senior year? Like, how did that look?
I mean, right when I got to Cal Poly, I hit the ground running. Like, I knew that, I wanted a full-time job lined up. My sights were early set on tech. So I was just taking every single opportunity I could have taken. I know, like, for my parents, it seemed like I was overloading myself. And in a sense, I do agree. But I mean, everything that I took on has paid off in a sense, or, has been transferable to what I'm doing now. So yeah, it was something I knew, like, as I was transferring. And then when I got there, I was like, okay, this is what I have to do in order to get where I need to be.
And what was it that you did? Like, did you go to career fairs? Was there a career center that you did? Like, what activities did you do to start looking for internships that first semester?
Yes, absolutely. My first involvement was with Women in Business, which is, I'd say one of the largest organizations at Cal Poly, at least within the business school. I got involved in the winter of the year I transferred over. So I think I had 1 quarter to kind of build up my resume with very little, but that was something that really opened doors for me. I ended up working at the Career Readiness Center, like as the marketing student assistant as a senior. So working in the career center was phenomenal for me. It was kind of a cheat code of like, getting that resume help and that feedback within my workspace was instrumental. I was a student assistant in, I think, 3 or 4 different capacities. I was also a mentor in many capacities, and they kind of just started building up once I'd gotten that like role with women in business.
Nice. And so, how about going to let me back up. Did you have an internship your junior year?
I did 2 unpaid internships my junior year, like during classes.
Got it.
And then summer, I worked as a student assistant at Cal Poly.
Got it. And
Yes.
so how did you line up the 2 unpaid internships during your junior year?
Those were off of LinkedIn. I was scouring LinkedIn every day to find opportunities. I mean, there were a lot of opportunities through the Career Center, but I knew coming in as a transfer, I wouldn't have much like on my resume to kind of, allow me to get those opportunities. So I was taking anything I could, which is why I was taking unpaid opportunities.
Nice. And do you think in that regard, do you think there was anything that you could have done at CSM differently to put you in a position to get paid internships or more attractive internships your junior year? Do you look back and think, boy, I should have done this at CSM? This would have been helpful to have now.
For sure. I think there's definitely so many involvements that I could have taken at CSM that I didn't. Um, but I mean, at the time, I was just so focused on maintaining, solid grades to transfer. So I wouldn't change anything about that. But without a doubt, like, it would have changed my experience.
Got it. Okay. All right. Um, going into your senior year,
Yeah.
the main goal was obviously graduating. Um, but talk about So just to like cut to the chase,
Mhm.
you ended up in Washington your after you graduated, and so I'm very curious to know like how that entire process played out. Like, what did your senior year and the recruiting process look like, and how did you end up in DC?
Right. So I was dead set on going into tech. Um, I had so many opportunities where, I was talking to recruiters and I really wanted to work in like corporate SF, which is something that many people from Cal Poly end up doing, just working there. Um, but it was around the time of the election, the 2024 presidential election, and the results had just dropped. And it was a very pivotal moment for me. It was kind of when things came into focus and I realized what was at stake and that for me, I wanted my talents to be used in a way that was more meaningful than just working in marketing.
And so, how did you? What? Let's back up. What was your internship over the summer? Like, what did you do in DC?
So this past summer, I've been working at a political nonprofit that focuses on advocacy and also uplifting like the socioeconomic well-being of Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islanders. So I was a communications intern in-house, which was super transferable for someone with a marketing degree. I was, writing press releases and writing articles. I'm actually still in it. I still have one more week, but I'm working remotely in California. Um, but like other opportunities, we've been able to advocate for legislation on Capitol Hill, just attending mixers and like Senate offices, things of that nature. So yeah, very policy, political geared, which is exactly what I'm looking for.
And does it feel empowering? Like, was it an awesome experience over the summer?
I mean, it was life changing. It was definitely transformative, and definitely strengthened any idea of what I've been wanting to do. Because I mean, it was complete 360 from everything that I'd been learning and preparing for. So it has been a tremendous learning experience in terms of being challenged,
Yeah.
and um, it's
It's
been a
really cool
yeah,
because I tell a lot of my students that like you shouldn't be spending so much time at in a community college thinking about what you're going to do for the rest of your life because
right,
you have no idea what's available out in the real world and
absolutely,
what opportunities are going to present themselves and what you think you might want to be is going to be totally different when you get into the workforce and you're exposed to things in the workforce or in the real world. And so it's interesting to hear, but like, because for me personally, that was very much my experience.
right,
And it's interesting to listen to you. You're also having a very similar experience. And
yes,
so it's validating that some of the things that I say I know are quite
yes,
ridiculous in class, but at least that is something that still holds true. So
right.
I'm excited to know. Okay, so what's next? So actually let me back up. How did you afford to live in DC? Was the internship over the summer a paid internship? And how did you find a place to live? And what was it like moving to the East Coast? And just sort of explain that whole experience.
Yeah, when I was applying to opportunities, I knew that I wanted something paid because there are a lot of opportunities in the public sector that aren't paid. Um, which kind of creates a barrier for people who, like underrepresented people like me who want to enter. But I got very lucky because my top choice internship, which is the one that I had this past summer, is one of the highest paying within like the AA and HPI space in DC. So I was very lucky. I had a pretty generous stipend. I was able to afford housing out there. And I mean, they also covered like a lot of other things like food and transportation. So I'm very, very blessed in that regard. Moving to the East Coast was a huge transition for me. I mean, I've been to other countries, but I haven't been to the East Coast. So that was a completely insane transition for someone who was born and raised in the West Coast. Um, but I've ended up loving DC. Like, I kind of want to spend the rest of my 20s there.
No kidding.
Yeah,
You hear so much. especially right now, you
Mhm.
hear so much about how dangerous it is, and there's like criminals running around everywhere. It doesn't sound like that's the experience that you had.
Not necessarily, no. I mean, I spent a lot of my time growing up, like, in San Francisco. I mean, I've been to other metropolitan areas, but, I've definitely felt safer in DC than I have, like,
Wow,
in San
nice.
Francisco.
You would never know that watching TV.
Right, right.
That's hilarious. Okay, so what is the well, let me back up. What was it like graduating? So, I'm assuming that you walked in May, and what was that experience like?
We're on the quarter system, so I graduated mid-June. It was pretty late, and that was actually the same day I flew out to DC, so I kind of just been in, like, a complete transitionary period. I haven't really nothing is set in terms of the fact that I graduated, so
Nice.
it was a very quick turnaround.
And so what is next? So, from what I understand, based on our LinkedIn, uh, emails, you're going back to DC, like, in the fall? So what are you going back to do, and for how long?
Correct. So my second choice internship for the summer, I ended up getting an interview, so I deferred that to the fall, and I got very lucky because they are in the same realm. It's a congressional internship program, um, but I was able to meet people that work for the organization I'll be with, in the fall, and that was definitely helpful, like, going into my interview process and knowing what to expect.
Yeah.
Uh, So, yeah, I'll be doing a congressional internship. I'm placed with a congresswoman in California, and I'll be on Capitol Hill this fall.
And during the interview process, like, what do you think they were looking for in the interviews? Like, um and I definitely do wanna back up and talk
Right.
about the recruiting again,
Yes.
but in the interviews, like, did it matter that you were a marketing major? Like, what was the skill set that you felt like they were looking for when you were going through the interview process?
What's really interesting is I went in completely fearful because I expected to only be asked about legislation, because the work I'll be doing is both press and legislative. So, I mean, I went in like studying this congresswoman's policies, and so forth, and I thought, that was going to be my ticket in. Um,
Yeah.
but then my interviewer was solely focused on the fact that I had pivoted from tech. I think they just continue to reiterate that question, like, why did you transition? And that's not what I expected at all. So, I mean, yeah, that's how the interview went. I was personally shocked because I was like, "Are you not going to ask me about, like, these things I've been studying for almost like a few
Yeah.
months?" But they were solely interested in, like, why did you pivot? And like that was it.
Interesting. And I wonder why they were asking you those questions. Were they worried that you were you were flighty and you didn't know what you wanted to do? Or were they worried that there was gonna be nothing tech related
Right.
in your internship? Like, what do you think they were concerned about?
I think they were genuinely curious about someone with a bit of an unorthodox background. I mean, I found that in the spaces I've been, everyone I know, like KJD, like they're planning to go to law school right out. Like they had been studying political science. So I don't fit in the mold in the sense that I'm, a Pacific Islander woman,
Yeah.
like from Capitol Hill. And I also don't fit in the sense where my background is more technical or related to tech or related to business, like things of that nature. So, I mean, my interviewer just expressed genuine curiosity, and I was thrilled to kind of speak on my experience.
Yeah, nice. And so once you started the internship over the summer,
Mhm.
what was the skill set that that led well, let me back up. I'm assuming you had a successful experience. And so what are the things that led to your successful experience? Like, what skill sets do you think students should be focused on, especially at CSM, that helped you succeed in that internship over the summer?
Right. For me, it was a lot of soft skills, and I think I was really focused on technical skills in college. But like coming out to DC and meeting people, I found that people just want someone that they'd be willing to like grab a beer with, like at happy hour, or so I think just being a pleasant person was actually instrumental. I don't know if I met that requirement, but I really tried to make an effort. And also, I think working in the advocacy space, it's so important to remember that you need to advocate for yourself as well.
Yeah.
Um, Ask for help. I mean, that was something I tried to do, like even in your class, although I was generally quiet. I mean, like asking for help um, is so important. Like because the closed mouths don't get fed. And
Yeah.
that's something that was very important to me this summer.
Nice. Very cool. And very cool. Okay, so the plan is that you're going to go back to DC
Yes.
and then intern for how long are you going to is your next internship for, and then what are the plans after that?
This is another brief stint, so I'm only there until like mid to end of November. So just a few months. And then law school is definitely on my radar, at least a little farther from now. I'm thinking maybe at least 2 years from now, then I'll start applying. Um, but yeah, in between that stage, I really just want to get as much like varied experience as possible within policy and politics and kind of get a grasp of what I want to do after law school. I really want to work on a political campaign in time for midterms. That would be amazing if I could clutch that by January.
Nice. Well, you would get along with my daughter very well because a lot of what you're talking about sounds very similar to what she's been doing. She's a political science major and graduating at the end
Phenomenal.
of this year,
Oh,
and
wow.
so she's been involved in campaigns and
Right.
wants to also possibly go to law school, but hasn't totally figured it out. So,
Yeah.
like, those are big aspirations, and I applaud you in not rushing into that decision. It's a tough decision. Like
Right.
it's a very expensive decision.
Yes.
And you can't necessarily make that decision and then go through the experience
Absolutely.
and then change your mind. You can, but it's expensive
Mhm.
and difficult. So like really spending time thinking about whether or not that decision is the right decision for you makes a whole lot of sense to me. Um,
Absolutely.
and so like that this seems like a good place to sort of transition just for a little bit on your relationship with money. I
Mhm.
obviously realize that you're young and you're just getting started, and so there's like we're not going to have this like crazy conversation about 401ks and
Right.
how you're preparing for your retirement, but you have experienced quite a bit between your time at CSM and
Uh-huh.
living in DC, which I think takes a lot of like financial maturity. And so I'm wondering when you transitioned to Cal Poly and
Uh-huh.
I'm assuming that was the first time you were sort of living on your own. Like, did you like how conscious were you about how you spent money? Like, how did you approach? Were you given an allowance? Were you given nothing and you had to figure it out? Like, how did you start managing
Mhm.
your relationship with money when you got to Cal Poly?
Right. I mean, I was definitely super conscious of, like money and spending habits and whatnot. I was very fortunate. I received a lot of grants and I received a lot of external scholarships that made college super affordable. Um, and I think also just I did have support from my parents as well. Um, like in a minimal way, but I mean, I wouldn't have been able to do it without the support of my parents because I
Yeah.
wasn't working my junior year. Again, I was taking unpaid positions and like loading up my schedule, but I wasn't making money. And I think my time at CSM was instrumental in the sense that I was making so much money and living at home. So, going in, I had, like a stable amount of money to play with.
Nice. And was it because I spoke to an individual last week and she was like, "Yeah, I fucking blew through my savings like real fast. Like I was just like I just wasn't paying attention to it and it evaporated fast." And so was that a similar experience for you or were you were you a little bit better at managing your day-to-day finances? And actually, and so yeah, I'll stop there.
I was terrible. So I hope my mom's not listening, but definitely was spending a lot of money. Um, Even when you budget going in, it's not what you expect when you're actually at college. Um, my thing was always eating out. I mean, even now that's a problem. It's like always eating out rather than cooking at home. Um,
We share a very similar experience. And that's like my downfall
exactly.
is spending money on food, and it's so easy for me to do that.
Yeah.
Um, and it's funny because so like I have this personal finance class, and I have students, and there are students from all across the board, right? So I have
Mhm.
CSM students, I have students that have already graduated, and they've just recently entered the workforce, and then I've got individuals who are retired and sort of like coming back and thinking about, their finances
Yeah.
for some reason. And everybody, it doesn't matter where you are on the spectrum, everybody, when they start adding up and identifying how much they spend, they are always shocked at how much they spend on food. Like,
Right.
without a doubt, it is just the most amazing experience to think about how much money you spend on food. It's crazy. So yeah, I totally I appreciate your honesty on that answer, and it's very common.
Mhm.
Everybody spends a lot more than what they think they do, and that's another budgeting. It's another budgeting thing that is very common. Like, so when we set out our budget, um, and we say, "Hey, like, I think this is the amount of money that I'm going to spend in this category. This is the amount of money that I anticipate spending in this category." Usually, it's the case when we first start budgeting, we never get that right. We
Right.
always have a tendency to, like, underestimate, like, "Oh, I'm only gonna spend 10% of my allowance on food, and then I'm really gonna spend 30% on, my cell phone and rent, and
Mhm.
40% on going out and having fun." And
Mhm.
it's like, it's shocking to most people that we always have a tendency to, like, underestimate how much
Right.
things are really gonna cost.
Mhm.
And so, like, the big win, I would say, in your situation isn't so much that you underestimated and you wanna kick yourself for spending more than you had anticipated. Really, the big win is appreciating the fact that, like, that is a common experience, and understanding that when you're 20
Mhm.
is, like, a really powerful experience as opposed to 35 and 40, and
Mhm.
just sort of becoming, I don't know, enlightened on the way that you spend money.
Right. No,
So
fully.
so you're knocking down some of, like, the most common things that sort of most people uncover when they start spending time thinking about how they spend money, so
Yeah.
more power to you. How about, do you feel like you've improved in how you sort of anticipate how much you're gonna spend and how much you actually spend? And do you now allow yourself to, like, allocate more money to eating out, and you just anticipate that this is just something that's important to me, it's a priority,
Right.
it's a priority for me,
Yes.
and so do you just say, are you more reasonable in the way that you, like, approach your anticipation of how much you're gonna spend?
Definitely. I give myself more room. I don't think I should be giving myself more room, but I do, especially, for the food category, because that really is the bulk of my expenses. I mean, I don't really make crazy financial decisions.
Nice.
Um, yeah.
Okay. And then how about establishing credit? Have you started that process? Like, do you have a credit card? Have you applied for a credit card? Like, have you started thinking about your credit?
I have applied. I mean, I'm very mindful of my credit score, and again, I really don't make risky decisions, but I haven't necessarily been building credit, and I think that's kind of attributed to that kind of, um, mentality that I was raised with, to, like, stay within your means,
Yeah.
technically, so, but it's on my radar, and
Yeah.
I'm yeah.
So when I was when I was your age, all the way through maybe my like 31, 32, I was terrible at managing my credit situation. And
Mhm.
I got into a lot of trouble. I had like racked up credit. I mean, it wasn't crazy.
Mhm.
To me, it was a lot because I wasn't really making a lot when I was your age. But I had a terrible credit score and I had like credit card debt. And because of that experience, I sort of got a handle on it. Like, so
Mhm.
backing up, when we went to go buy our first house,
Mhm.
my broker was like, dude, your fucking credit score is terrible. Like, you got to get it figured out. And
Right.
so he forced me to go to like a credit repair
Mhm.
agency. And,
Wow.
there were all these things that we did to, like, I didn't have debt, but I had
Mhm.
a low credit score.
Mhm.
So there were letters that we wrote and we sent out to former creditors and to repair my credit. But anyway, it was such an embarrassing thing to have to go through. I
Mhm.
was like, I'm never fucking gonna use a credit card ever again in my entire life. Like,
Mhm.
credit cards are evil. The credit companies are evil. They're out to screw you over any chance they get. And so I never used a credit card until I started writing my personal finance textbook.
Mhm.
And when I was writing that chapter, I realized that, wow, like, I'm doing myself a disservice
Mhm.
by not using that credit card.
Right.
And it's not really about spending things beyond your means.
Yeah.
It's more about um, using the credit card instead of your own cash
Mhm.
so that you can accumulate points. And
Yes.
so as long as you, like, let's say that I allocate $300 for the month in food, like, instead of using cash to buy food, you would use your credit card to buy food. And that $300 expense turns into like a a a point accumulation process.
Mhm.
So if I'm going to get 5% cash back from using my credit card and I'm only going to spend $300 on food, what I would do is I would just use my credit card, pay the sorry, use a credit card, rack up a $300 bill, and
Yeah.
then at the very end of the month, just pay that off in full so that I don't have to pay interest. But in addition, I'm also getting $15 back from the credit card company
Mhm.
because I get 5% back on every dollar that I spend. Excuse me. And so, like, for me, um, it turns out that, like, I started really paying attention to the types of credit cards that are available to me, what
Mhm.
rewards they offer, and,
Right.
like, for me, it works out that I have a credit card that allows me airline miles, and I use that to, like, fly my daughter back and forth to Chicago.
Mhm.
When I'm tired of her craziness, I just get the points, send her back to Chicago, and it's
Yeah.
totally free. It's awesome. And so,
Exactly.
like, I would encourage you to think about your credit card situation, not so much
Mhm.
or definitely not in terms of spending beyond your means, but like, it's an opportunity for you to establish your credit and
Mhm.
earn some benefit from using the credit card. So I would definitely put that on your radar.
Thank you.
And you can use, you can obviously, there's all sorts of different types of credit cards.
Yeah.
You can use, you can get secure credit cards. So, like, my son right now
Mhm.
just applied for a credit card and he got denied. He wanted to buy a computer, a really expensive computer from Amazon. And he was like, hey, the Amazon Prime has a credit card
Mhm.
and it's interest free for a year. So he tried applying for it, and they were like, "Yeah, dude, sorry, you you don't you don't have credit history enough to warrant
Yes.
that card." And I was telling him, "Look, dude, you can get a secured card if you would like." And he's like, "Well, what's that?" And I was like, "Okay, well, a secure card is where you give the credit card company $500, and then the credit card company holds your $500 as security." And
Mhm.
so they then allow you to use their credit card. And then obviously, if you pay if you spend $300, you pay the $300 at the end of the month. If you don't pay the 300 at the end of the month, they can take some of the 500 that they've already received from you and use it to pay off the credit card, which is why they call it secured. So anyway, like for anybody who's looking to establish credit and can't get like a traditional credit card, that's a nice, easy way to like sort of establish your credit at an early age.
Brilliant.
And so what about like, I don't know, have you thought about like what you would do in terms of retirement? Like has any of that like crossed your radar at all?
It definitely has. I mean, I'm around friends who are very financially literate, so I know like they've maxed out their Roth, and like we've had these discussions. Um, and then for me, I'm still like in a trying to accumulate stage, but I mean, it's in the back of my mind.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but it's on the radar. And
yeah,
and
it is.
it's interesting that you said you talk to your friends, because the last conversation I had with somebody who graduated or who's going to Cal Poly was like, oh fuck no, there's no way I talk, like we don't talk
Yeah,
about money within my circle of friends. And they were saying like the reason is they don't want to be preachy. She's very, very sophisticated when it comes to money.
mhm,
But she was saying she doesn't talk about money because she doesn't want to come across as being preachy.
right.
And I was thinking, yeah, like that's funny because I talk about money all the time with
Yeah,
my friends.
yeah,
And it's not about being preachy. It's about like, hey, what are you guys doing?
exactly.
You know, like what are the tricks that you employ? And I personally find it really helpful to like ask questions with like people who I think are, successful at managing their money, just to get a sense as to what they're up to. And I've personally found that through those conversations, it's not rocket science, right? Like,
Yeah,
so like just being able to, consciously spend your money and setting aside realistic budgets is probably the hardest thing about accumulating wealth,
yeah,
right? It's not about coming up with some crazy idea on what to do with your money. It's more about like, man, how am I going to stop spending $600 on going out to,
mhm,
to dinners? Like,
right.
how can I just take 100 of that and move it into maybe establishing a Roth or
Mhm.
some retirement account? So I don't know, like, sounds like a bit of a tangent. How should we end this? Do you have any questions for me? Was there something that that maybe we glossed over that you think is worth highlighting?
Not necessarily. I feel like we covered all the bases.
Yeah, same here. I feel like this is a good mic drop moment. Out of curiosity, um, two questions. One, Friday night, super, super, super good week, right? You had you did everything right. It's Friday evening. What's the go-to meal?
Go-to meal,
Yeah.
definitely pasta.
No shit.
Yeah. Love like a spicy vodka rigatoni.
Nice.
That's great.
That's actually that's a go-to item in our household.
Really.
Yeah, like the with vodka pasta is it. I love vodka pasta.
Same.
And I'm usually the guy who gets the vodka pasta with sausage. Oh man, it's so good. Okay, so financial goal. Let's end with that. Like what is your ultimate financial goal? Do you want to be, and I'll just give you some ideas to think
Mhm.
about. Do you want to be rich? Do you want to be, instead of being rich, do you want to instead be working in a profession that you get a lot of fulfillment out of, and it's okay that it comes at the sacrifice of being rich? Like,
Mhm.
and to me, there's nothing wrong with wanting to be rich. I personally find that to be one of my financial goals, and the reason is because maybe being rich isn't the right way to think about it, but having a huge amount of wealth to live off of gives me the flexibility to do, things outside of work that are really important to me. So anyway, what do you have like a long-term financial goal?
Yeah, I mean, definitely financial freedom, which is another way to just phrase that, rich. Um, but precisely the ability in order to support my parents is paramount to me. Um, but that won't happen for some time, like with where I'm at. I mean, just working in the public sector right now, I chose what's more meaningful to me rather than like a large salary. And um, I mean, that's like a conscious decision that I made.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, it won't be soon.
So if that is the goal, then then I would really definitely continue being conscious about the way that you spend money. The more
Right.
that you are conscious about spending money, the more that you can choose to make the types of decisions you're articulating.
Mhm.
It's easier to do something fulfilling if you don't have like a substantial amount of student loan debt, you don't have credit card debt, you have your spending under control. It's easier to make those decisions. So I would definitely encourage you to continue to be mindful about the way that you spend your money. I think
Yeah,
that's a critical element to choosing, something fulfilling and rewarding.
for
And
sure.
then also I would encourage you to look into those credit cards
Yes.
and take advantage of the rewards without, obviously accumulating credit card debt.